100, which is finally, or still, it is still the latest version. And so you do not really expect that resistors are changing so much in its value that finally the radio don't work any longer. And I mean, why do we have the same problem on both here on the panel board? I mean, down here you have the new resistor as well, and here two resistors in the same line which have changed the value. And you know, I believe that something has happened to the radio, because I cannot believe that it is due to aging, and if so, why two resistors on the same line? But again, I cannot see any burning marks on the resistors, so it is still weird. It is really still weird. So I can tell you it is a very seldom issue. I mean, I've seen so many things, but this is it is a kind of special. Okay, so we are making progress. So front panel is back in housing, and yeah, we have it in the chassis, the main board, and let's test if still is fine. And yes, it looks like very nice. Okay, so the next I want to do is to connect back here our antenna connector to be able to test the radio for TX and of course RX. Okay, so everything is back together for testing, and you already can see it here. So we are receiving, and yeah, that is already awesome, right? And I already see the figures on the tester, so let's go over. And here we have it. So let me switch off the speaker, and you see everything is really nice. So it is working just fine. You can see it here. Yeah, and we are here as 9 level, and you see our silent is just fine, almost 40 dB, which is really good. And so yeah, it is given here. And of course I have switched over here to 70 centimeter for 33, just the frequency for testing, and we have finally the same result, right? And I just performed here our sensitivity test. You see our 12 dB point is at minus 120, yeah, almost 4. And that is absolutely fine. So let's go back to 2 meter. Let's do exactly the same. And I've done here on 2 meter exactly the same. And you see our 12 dB point is at approximately the same level, which is definitely fine. We hear, of course, the signal in the noise, so that is no wonder. But we are really filling the specs if we are talking about our RX on both 70 centimeter and 2 meter, which is perfect. Okay, and now we are interested in transmit, so I had to put here my high power power supply to the radio, and yeah, so that is done. We are still on 2 meter, and let's see. Yeah, so radio is set to low, which is approximately 5 watt, which is definitely, or what we are testing here is 4.3, and I'm interested if we see modulation, and yes, we see, so that means modulation is also working great. Okay, so what does it mean? So receive works, transmit works, modulation works. That means everything is fine, and that means radio is back alive. I just want to stop the video here. I have, of course, to do some minor adjustings here and there, and I have to put all the screws here back to the chassis, so I only have the screws in here for final and pre-final, and of course here for our audio chip to have the heat sink. So some little minor things I have to do, but radio is back working, so really that is awesome, as it was really a tricky fault. Again, this resistor thing, it is really a little bit funny, maybe that someone of you may have an idea why this resistor went high resistance, and again I have tested the resistor. It was approximately 50 kilo ohm, so unbelievable, right? Anyways, tricky fault, not easy to find, but radio is really back working, everything is honky donkey, and let me stop the video here. Thanks for watching, and catch you next time. Bye. Episode of TRX Bench. Well, many of you asked on lab update, and here it is. So there are some new tools here in the shop, and yeah, let's go through and let me tell a little bit about my experience with the new tools, and of course with some of the old, to compare it a little bit, so where might be the advantage, yeah, compared to the older one, and well, for what can we use it. So that will be the subject today, so let's go into the video. Okay, so if you have followed my videos in the past, so you may have already recognized that there is a new shelf to simply have here a bit more bench space to organize some of the test equipment a little bit better. So one point was to organize my microscope a little bit better, which is now located down there, and it is easier, much easier to get it out and use it, and therefore I moved my audio tester back to another location, which is now up there, and therefore, as you can see, it is now much easier for me to get my microscope out, and today with all the SMD components in modern radios, it is really very often used, and therefore I needed a better access to it, to get it in and to get it out. Then, of course, the next step was to integrate the new radio communication tester, which is more or less modern CMRS, and that will be in the future my main test set, but I will maintain and keep here my CMT, so that will be part of my lab in the future as well, and as well here my HF generator, because the HP is a set which goes up to, let me see if we can see it here, up to 3.2 gigahertz, and additional to that, this HP has an option included which can put out 20 dBm, right? So, and 20 dBm is 100 milliwatt of RF power. So that is a very strong generator, and so therefore this together, of course, with the CMT and with the new CMS will be the main unit need to do here on the radio work. I'm still using my old spectrum analyzer, which is an advanced test analyzer, and so that is more or less a backup system, or when I really can't use my monitor for using my signal hound. But you may know that I'm using my signal hound spectrum analyzer, which is really a nice set, and I really love it because really it is so easy to operate, and it has really a lot of capability in terms of feature set and automatic tests, which can be performed without really adjusting all the different steps. So a lot of automatic functions, and if you are following my channel, you have seen that I can display the result here on my main monitor, and that is really then a nice and easy big display. So that is still, or will be still, my main spectrum analyzer, and my spectrum analyzer, which is at least the signal generator, signal analyzer 44, signal analyzer 44B, which is a type which goes from 1 Hertz up to 4.4 gigahertz, so very nice. But I really want to talk a little bit more about my Hacko, so my reverb system. So why it is now a Hacko and not again a Vela. So let me talk a little bit about that. Then saying Hacko, so let us talk a little bit about the fume absorber as well a little bit. So if you've seen my videos, so you may have recognized that I'm now using a more effective fume extractor, and let us talk a little bit about that. And then of course let's talk a little bit about the Rohde & Schwarz CMS, which is more or less one of the latest production of the CMS. You may know that for now you can't buy them new, so Rohde & Schwarz has a CMA, I believe it is, CMA 180, which is the newest and fully digital radio communication service monitor, which is now available on the market. But this CMS are still very popular, and if you have one from the latest production, then it is of course really a nice, let me call it modern radio communication tester. So let's talk about that a little bit. And then let's talk about the Rohde & Schwarz. It is called amplitude controller. So that is the SNDU-Z1, and that is really not a new unit. So I'm not entirely sure, but I believe the SNDU is now 40 years old or so. I'm not entirely sure, but it is still a very nice unit, which is very, very helpful in your shop, and therefore let's talk a little bit about that unit as well. Okay, so let's start with the Hakko, and you may already see, so that is the Hakko FM203, which is a 2-channel soldering station, and then the hot air rework station, the FR810B. But, well, let me first of all talk a little bit about the past to understand a bit better why especially here our new soldering iron together with the station is really handy and is really fulfilling the today's needs. But let's look back a little bit. So when I started with electronics, and that is almost 40 years ago, so you really only needed one soldering iron, right? So you didn't need special tips or even more than one. I mean, alright, so you may have had your preferences for one special tip, maybe something like this, I'm not entirely sure how you call it, or maybe this kind here, or maybe this. So, okay, so anybody was used to have one dedicated tip, but that was not really related to the job you have done, so it was more or less your personal preference, right? So you really could do all your jobs with one tip, so you didn't need to change it, and that was really the fact for more than 35 years. And then when it starts to really get into SMD work, then a little bit changed, and you ask for another soldering iron. So this here, which is the WSP80 from Weller, and it is still a soldering iron you can buy, and to be honest, it is still really a good soldering iron, so nothing to complain as long we are talking about functionality. So it is really nice. But then, and that is what really changed over the years, you have new challenges. So SMD work is really different to what we did in the past. So therefore, you really needed to have different tips. Of course, no problem. So especially here for the WSP80, a lot of different tips are available. And I was using these different tips for SMD work. So maybe this one, which I used for drag soldering, or this very, very fine tip for SMD work. This, for instance, didn't really worked out very well, because maybe it was too long, and one of the problems of the older soldering irons was that the tips themselves were not heated, right? So the heating element was behind the tip. So this here is the heating element, and you see, if you use, for instance, this tip, then it makes a connection here with the heating element, alright? So like so, and the tip gets heated, but you know, there is no real temperature control. I mean, yeah, somehow it was controlled, but the heater was controlled, not really the tip. And you already see the problem. So today we really have the challenge that you have to change your tip during your work. So you cannot expect that you can really do all your job in a convenient way with only one tip. I mean, this tip here was my main tip, and I really was able to do really a lot with this tip. So let me see, I believe I have here as well a new one. So this is a brand new one, and you see it is really a very fine tip, which can be used for SMD soldering, even for fine pitch work. But you know, the problem and the inconvenience is that you really have to change your tip in a way which is annoying. So, you know, everything is hot, you really can't grab it easily, so you have to take here this off, and you see now the tip is here inside, so you need to get it out, and remember, everything is quite hot, and you put your new tip in, and then it has to go back. So, you know, that is not really nice. And then, secondly, yes, we have temperature control, but it is not so good. Yeah, it is working, but it is not perfect. Now, you know there are new challenges, and you becoming more and more unsatisfied with the solution you have, and even if you have something like this, you really need a tool to get it off, and that makes it much more inconvenient. I mean, this one is, you know, handlebar without any tool, but it is still it is not very professional for today. And of course, even from Weller, so the most modern rework station, stations have a fast exchange of the tip, so no question. So that is available today, but it is very pricey. So you have really to pay a lot of money for the most advanced soldering rework station from Weller. So you know, that is really a pain. Okay, so then let's go back to Hacko, and we have really more than one advantage with this soldering system, and it is not a new one. I mean, Hacko has now for a couple of years a very similar station on the market. I mean, even was it the FM201? I'm not entirely sure, but anyways, so this is a soldering station for 120 watt. I mean, the mobile iron is 70 watt. You may be able to read it, and 70 watt, to be honest, is really the minimum you need today. I mean, this soldering iron is declared as, you can see it here, as 80 watt, okay, but the old stations which I was using and which were available in the past only had a capability of 50 watt. So even you put this 80 watt soldering iron to the stations, and let me go over. So I still have it here in my setup. So the WECP20, right? So that were the stations which were available in the past. I don't know, it is already, I don't know, 20 years ago when I purchased these stations, I don't know. So at that time we was only able to get this 50 watt stations. So nowadays it is of course different, but back then I believe that was the most advanced stations, to my knowledge. Maybe I'm wrong, but it was really a problem to get a higher capable soldering station. So therefore, you know, I had an 80 watt soldering iron, but it was always connected to a 50 watt station, and you know, you never had the full capability of the soldering iron present at your tip. And you know, today it is really difficult with all heat sinks we have to handle. If you have ever soldered on an iPhone, for instance, and you think, hey, that is only a little PCB, so that is all no problem, well, you might have, if you have worked on it, experienced something different. So even the iPhones have a very, very good heatsink system, and if you go down with your soldering iron to a PCB of an iPhone, you will be really surprised, because even this little PCB can really suck all your temperature out of your soldering iron, and the station might not able to deliver enough power to overcome this heat sink problems. So therefore, this base station here will solve this problem, as you are able to connect to this base station the optional available soldering irons with 120 watt, and then you really have enough power to overcome all these issues. But well, if you are using this iron here, you really are able to handle most of the jobs you have to do in the radio business, or even on the cell phone business. So no problem with this iron. So that is the first advantage. The second advantage is that, as I already told you, it is so easy, right, to change your tip, and that is, from my point of view, really an easy way. So you only press here this both triggers, and then you pull your whole tip out of the holder itself, and then you may have already seen it. You have here this holder with all the different tips, and you may use here the tip you need for your next job, and you simply click it in, right, and it is ready to go. And if you need to change it once again, so it is again the same step, right? And even, you know, it is hot, you can place it back here to the stand, and you simply use here your next tip, and you do exactly the same, and it is done. So that is really an advantage, and that really helps, because now it is no pain anymore to change your tip. And I mean, you see, for all the different work you may use different tips, and you see this is really a needle which is needed sometimes, and even this one here is already a very fine tip to do all the S&D work. And of course we have all the other tips. This I use for, as I already told you, with the old well one, I use it for drag soldering, and to clean off pads I use this here, alright. So it is really so easy, and I use this one, or I have it in a little, where is it? I don't see it right now. Anyways, so this one here I use to pull this kind of transistors. So these are the known final transistors in our radio, and it is easy to go with a tip like this here underneath, right, and to bend it up a little bit to finally desolder it. And you see, with all the different tips, it is really so easy to do your job. And even, I mean, you see, I have here 1, 2, 3, 4, I have 5 of this, how do you call it, holders, or I don't know. And even if I need one of this here, where which is not in one of these holders, I don't know. Even this one is hot, but here this part is not hot, so you can touch it, and now you can push it through, okay? And now this is not hot, all right? So you can take it out, put it away, and you can easily put here the one you need into it, and put it back here into your iron, right? So that is really so easy, and it is really so convenient. But additional to that, there is another issue. I mean, these tips have or has their heating element right here in the tip, and not only the heating element, as well your temperature control is in the tip. So that means the modern stations can much easier hold the required temperature, even if there is a huge heat sink to overcome, right? So therefore, this is the second huge advantage compared to the older systems. And the third one is this station has this automatic switch off. So you already see these stands here are connected with the station. And when I take here my soldering iron out of the stand, then the soldering iron becomes live again. Alright, you may ask, what is that good for? And I can tell you, when you are working in the lab, you are soldering, you are testing, you are measuring, whatever, you simply forget sometimes of your iron, and that means it is burning and running on high temperature, and that finally will destroy your tip. And I mean, tips are always not very cheap, so you are really happy if your system is helping you to maintain your tip as long as possible. I mean, still, if you see here my tips, you see that there is always a lot of solder on, and that is simply to the fact, you can see it here, I have always a lot of solder, and that is simply because if there is solder on your tip, then that protects your tip, and it can't burn off so easily. And if you